All right, good afternoon. This is Jonathan Alexander, Live Border News, and we're out here at the Great American Pizza in Golden Valley, Arizona. And tonight I have Kirk Pendergrass from Kirks Law, Coroner LLC with me. And Kirk, I'm going to hand the mic to you and explain to everybody what you're doing here.
All right, thank you. Thank you all for being here. I'm Kirk Pendergrass. I'm the founder and president of Kirks Law Coroner, and I provide education. I've been studying law and the history of law since 1995, been down lots of rabbit holes, and I have a lot of knowledge up here in my head just from reading, because reading means reading. But I'm going to take just a quick pause here to get my live started. Oh, why is it not doing? All right, let's see if I can get this. Okay, so how many people are familiar with the Declaration of Independence? Anybody? Anybody here? Oh wait, let's look at that again. Raise your hand if you're familiar with the Declaration of Independence. Can anybody name one body of law that is stated or cited in the Declaration of Independence? No hands. No hands. So I'm going to read from the Declaration of Independence here, right in the very beginning. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature, that's the body of law that I was asking about. That is a body of law. Okay? And of nature's God entitle them a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. Now, a lot of people think the Declaration of Independence is the document. But what does it say there? Declaring the causes which impel them to the separation. They're said they're founding documents that go before the Declaration of Independence. There's the Lee's Resolution, which was the resolution in the Continental Congress, and that's the one that actually separates us from Great Britain. Then you have the first document is called the Virginia Declaration of Rights, June 12, 1776. That declares Christianity as our ideology in this new nation called America, because we just separated from Great Britain, so we're no longer part of the England's nation. So anytime you start a new nation, which is pretty rare in history to start a new nation, but you have to declare your ideology. What's your morals and principles? Where does it come from? So the Virginia Declaration of Rights is the theoretical foundation of all government. And people are not aware that Virginia was a very large territorial mass, that actually 7 of the colonies were settled within the territory of Virginia, which is why it's so important to understand how Virginia started everything, clear back to the first charter of Virginia in 1606. And what were they doing? They were fleeing from Great Britain for religious reasons, to separate from the Roman Catholic Church, Catholicism, because the Protestants wanted Christianity as their ideology, not Catholicism. And that's a whole nother rabbit hole. I'm not going to go into that tonight, but that's what's in there. What it says, even in the Magna Carta of 1215, they were trying to separate from the Roman Catholic Church. So that's how old this wanting to get away from the Roman civil law is what it really is. The code. You ever hear United States Code, Code of Federal Regulations, Uniform Commercial Code? That's all Roman civil law. That tells you we're back under the monarchy, under the Roman Catholic Church, under Catholicism, where the king rules. We have rulers, we don't have servants. Well, our founders, we're tired of that. And I'll go clear back. Founders, way back. We're tired of that. We wanted freedom, religious freedom, which really is just liberty of conscience, the right to think for ourselves, right to self-determination. Because that's where the right of liberty of conscience comes from, right to think for ourselves. So now we're aware of this laws of nature, or law of nature, as a body of law. To continue the Declaration of Independence, it says, we hold these truths to be self-evident. Now, I always make the joke here, do you have to hit your thumb with a hammer to know that it's going to hurt? Because if you're one of those kinds of people that actually has to hit your thumb with the hammer to know that it's going to hurt, you belong in a loony bin. We call them insane or not of sound mind. We'll get into that first fundamental primitive law of nature here in just a minute. So here's what's supposed to be self-evident. This is ignorance of the law is no excuse, as a maxim of law, a rule of law. That all men are created equal. If we're all created equal, how does any other man or set of men have any authority to dictate to us anything at any time, anywhere, ever? That violates the first fundamental principle of the laws of nature, is to be free. God created us all free and equal, right? Imagine that. That they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. That's an indicator of a sovereign. Sovereign is a creator. So God is the sovereign. God endows us with those unalienable rights. A lot of people don't like to hear it pronounced unalienable, but it's because our rights are our property, and you can't place a lien upon them, which is holding our rights as property, taking them until we pay the debt. And that's what's actually happened over and over and over and over and over again throughout history. That among these, so this isn't all of them, this is just among them, life as opposed to death, right? Liberty as opposed to basically slavery. We're free to go. Any military veterans here? Okay. What was it called when you were free to go? You're out on liberty. You're out on liberty. Right? And you're free to go do whatever you want. Even get in trouble. You might end up in the brig, but you're out on liberty. Okay? So that's kind of where that comes from. You're out on liberty. You're free to do what you want, but you still have responsibilities over here. You've got to come back. But that's in the military. Okay. Then we have, and the pursuit of happiness. To pursue our own happiness, right? But everything's supposed to be done in reverence to God because He's the creator. He's the sovereign. Now here's the key part of the Declaration of Independence as a fundamental principle here. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. You got to have consent. Does anybody know how we give that consent?
It's supposed to be by voting.
No. The instrument of government, it's the Constitution. And then you have to be bound by it. That's Article 6, Clause 3. All the aforementioned members, representatives, senators, and all the members of the legislature, executive, judicial, both state and federal, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. That's the key word, support. Like all these table legs here, support the tabletop. Those who support don't get to dictate what's up on top. They're the servants. They have to understand what's up here. And that's created by the people. That's a whole other sovereign. The people are supposed to be sovereign. So now we understand these just simple principles here. Before we even get into the government, we're supposed to all be free, living happily ever after, right? Pursuing our own happiness. We're out on liberty, enjoying life. Okay, so let's see. Now, when any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind, now listen up, folks, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. So that's where we're at, folks. Where are we at? Time to get up. Time to gain some knowledge. And I'm going to go to the Bible here on that particular subject, on knowledge. As my people shall be destroyed, or will be destroyed for lack of knowledge. So I'm done, tired of being suffering over here. And I'm tired of seeing my fellow man suffer, which is why I started doing what I'm doing, trying to educate my fellow man, because I can't really do this by myself. We need to have a majority of the people standing together. We can't have 5, 10, what do we got? 15 people here? Okay, I don't know how many people watching out there right now, but we have to have more than this. Okay? We need hundreds of thousands of people coming together. The people, the sovereign body. Because that's the one that has the power to create, the right to alter, reform, or abolish. That's that all political power is inherent in the people. All right. So I'm going to go to the Bible here. We're going to go to Ephesians 1:18. And this particular part here, from my Bible here, I have what's called the Founder's Bible. And there is lots of good stuff in this Founder's Bible. Our founders went through the Bible, and our form of government is actually right in the Bible here. They pulled it straight from the Bible. And this has little inserts in here, and it's just flat out amazing where this stuff, all our founders pulled this stuff from, these principles or rule of law. And so in this little insert here, it talks about, in all you're getting, above all, get understanding. The Apostle Paul begins the book of Ephesians by telling believers that he is specifically praying that, quote, the eyes of your understanding may be opened. That's the end quote there. He pointed out that if their understanding was opened, then notice the sequence, then you will know what is the hope of his calling, what are the riches of the glory of his inheritance in the saints. Okay? Numerous scriptures affirm this progression. For example, Psalms 119:34 says, quote, give me understanding that I may observe your law, end quote. Psalms 119:73 similarly declares, quote, give me understanding that I may learn your commandments, end quote. Because understanding is so crucial, Paul specifically prays for his spiritual son, Timothy, that, quote, the Lord will give you understanding in everything, end quote. 2 Timothy 2:7. The Bible often groups knowledge, understanding, and wisdom together. Kind of like evidence. Truth cannot become fact without evidence. So you can't have wisdom without understanding. You can't have understanding without knowledge. Because knowledge is power. Without knowledge, you ain't got no power. For example, Proverbs 24:3-4 states, quote, by wisdom a house is built, and by understanding it is established, and by knowledge the rooms are filled with all the precious and pleasant riches. End quote. But while the three are often mentioned together, numerous passages affirm that attaining wisdom is the ultimate objective. How many times do you have to hit your thumb with a hammer to know this is going to hurt? How many of you have actually done it? A few times. You got the scars to prove it. But I knew that it was going to hurt before. I didn't have to test that theory. Significantly, understanding is what takes knowledge and shows how to correctly apply it, thus producing wisdom. So there can't be wisdom, the highest goal, without understanding. Because understanding is so crucial to being able to experience the benefits and blessings of God's word, the enemy spends much time in trying to keep us from that pursuit. That'd be that pursuit of happiness, pursuit of God's will. One of his common tactics is to sow doubt, seeking to undermine our confidence in the truth by asserting that something is too complex or too difficult to be understood. Remember, Satan's a great deceiver of all men. He's all about trickery, about to deceive you, to trip you up. That's his primary purpose. And again, God gave us free will, free choice. So it's up to us every time. As far as I understand, Satan can't do anything. He has to do it through one of us. So it's always a choice of the man that's standing in front of you that's taking the actions. Can't blame anybody else but himself. One of his common tactics is to sow doubt, seeking to undermine our confidence in the truth by asserting that something is too complex, too difficult to be understood. If people accept such a claim, most will give up and not try to acquire understanding on that particular subject. So I think this is part of a problem in society, with obvious reason of lack of education, because our so-called public schools were hijacked. Okay? When they tried to do that separation of church and state, because some of you may remember this, that the school was the church. It was church on Sunday and school during the week. We taught right here from the Bible. We taught those 10 commandments and the fundamental principles, the rules of God's law, those maxims of law that come right from the Bible. And those are still very powerful today. It can be used in any court, anywhere, at any time. Just so you're all aware, this is a very powerful tool to have. Your Bible is a very powerful tool. There isn't anything higher standing in law or at law than God's law. Anything that comes in conflict with God's law is void for any effect, because everything else is made by man, and as that which is created by the Creator cannot dictate to the Creator. It's just a fundamental principle. So I want to go over here to Bouvet's Law Dictionary, 1856, and touch on the law of nature. The law of nature is that which God, the sovereign of the universe, has prescribed to all men, not by any formal promulgation, but by the internal dictate of reason alone. Let's hear. Do you possess logic and reason? That's that. Do you have to hit your thumb with a hammer to know that it's going to hurt? If you can logic and reason that out in your head, then you're of sound mind. You have that internal dictate of reason. It is discovered by a just consideration of the agreeableness or disagreeableness of human actions to the nature of man, and it comprehends all the duties which we owe either to the Supreme Being, to ourselves, or to our neighbors, as reverence to God. Now here's 6 primitive laws of nature. You have self-defense, temperance, honor to our parents, benevolence to all, a strict adherence to our engagements, which is contracts, gratitude, and the like. I'm going to break these down here. The Bible, or the Bouvet's dictionary here from 1856, the 6th edition, breaks these down. And it says the primitive laws of nature may be reduced to 6. Namely, number 1, comparative sagacity or reason. That's that. Logic and reason here. Number 2, self-love. 3, the attraction of the sexes to each other. Wait, there's only 2? Huh. The tenderness of parents towards their children. Number 5, the religious sentiment. And number 6 is sociability. Pay close attention to this first fundamental principle here. When man is properly organized, he is able to discover moral good from moral evil. And the study of man proves that man is not only an intelligent, but a free being. And he is therefore responsible for his actions. The key word is responsible, not accountable. Stop using the word accountable. It's response-able, able to respond. Okay? Responsible. We get to hold them responsible for their actions. The judgment we form of our good actions produces happiness. Pursuit of happiness. We're supposed to be doing good out here. Okay? On the contrary, the judgment we form of our bad actions produces unhappiness. So that's how we're supposed to just fundamentally tell. You know, when you're hanging out with friends or whatever, and you hurt your fellow man, they get unhappy. You're supposed to be able to know that, as well as obviously to yourself, but mostly just how you conduct yourself out here in God's world here. So that's the first primitive law of nature there. Now the second one, every animated being is impelled by nature to his own preservation, to defend his life and body from injuries, to shun what may be hurtful. Don't we shun the insane in our civilized society here? Don't we lock them up in loony bins? So that's your black and white, 2 choices. You're either of sound mind or you're insane. If you're insane, you need to be locked up to protect us. We don't want to have to deal with your craziness. But that's what we're dealing with in today's society. All this sexual immorality being promoted, taught to our young children. This is absolutely immoral. And to provide all things requisite to his existence. Hence the duty to watch over his own preservation. Suicide and dueling are therefore contrary to this law. And I love this next part. And man cannot mutilate himself, nor renounce his liberty. So all this sex change stuff going out there, that's in violation of God's law, the laws of nature, fundamental principles of law. We're not supposed to be allowing any kind of a doctor, hospital, any of that kind of stuff to do these kinds of mutilations. It's not authorized. And then the last part is you can't renounce your own liberty. Because again, that came from God, the sovereign, the creator. We're endowed by our creator with that. No man can take that away from us. All right, the third primitive law of nature, the attraction of the sexes, has been provided for the preservation of the human race. And this law condemns celibacy. Woo-hoo. The end of marriage proves that polygamy, polyandry, are contrary to the law of nature. Hence, it follows that the husband and wife have a mutual and exclusive right over each other. Now, for those of you who have ever taken your vows, it's a sacred vow between a man and a woman unto God till death do you part. You become a union of one, union of souls. And that's how God intended us to be, right here from the laws of nature. The attraction of the sexes. There's only 2 sexes because that you can't procreate without both. For those that are out there that don't quite understand that. So now we're going to go to the 4th primitive law of nature, Man from his birth is wholly unable to provide for the least of his necessities. But the love of his parents supplies for this weakness. Where does it say government? I don't see where it says government provides. This is one of the most powerful laws of nature. The principal duties it imposes on the parents are to bestow on the child all the care its weaknesses requires, to provide for its necessary food and clothing, to instruct it. Well, let's back up there. To provide for what? Food and clothing. There's a thing out there called governmental compelling interest, strict scrutiny standard. It's been just totally obliterated, and they just do whatever they want to do when they come in and take the kids. Where's the proof that you willfully deprive them of food or clothing? Because if you don't have that, there's no governmental compelling interest per the laws of nature. Okay? To instruct it, to provide for its wants, and to use coercive means for its good when requisite. The fifth one, the religious sentiment which leads us naturally towards the Supreme Being is one of the attributes which belong to humanity alone, and its importance gives it the rank of the moral law of nature. From this sentiment arise all the sects and different forms of worship among men. Gee, our founders, what did they say? Freedom of religion, free exercise of religion. Okay, again, internal conscience, the dictates of your own conscience. The sixth primitive, the need which man feels to live in society is one of the primitive laws of nature, whence flow our duties and rights. And the existence of society depends upon the condition that the rights of all shall be respected. But would those be all them rights held in common, the common law? On this law are based the assistance, succors, and good offices which men owe to each other, they being unable to provide each everything for himself. Think about that. Everybody here just had food here tonight. Did you grow that food? Did you make all that stuff? Did you make the metal? Did you make the oven? How many men do you think it actually took to create everything it took to feed you tonight? There's no way you can provide that for yourself. That's what this is talking about. We have to come together and work together as a community to even have great American pizza and subs. You got somebody's got to build those machines in there. Got to dig that iron up out of the ground and create it into steel, melt it all down to even make the machines that are in there to cook the meal that you just had tonight. That's what we're here. We all have our own little thing that we do, and we all contribute to our society as a whole so that we can even just have the basic ability to eat food. Okay. So you see how this all ties into the Declaration of Independence, where our founders were coming from when they were talking about the laws of nature. Now I have the next thing I'm going to go over here is the law of nations, or the principles of the laws of nature as applied to the conduct of nations. This is regarded as international law. Every nation goes by this law, which again, it's all based on the law of nature and how it applies to the conduct of nations. So this is the preliminaries here, and it's idea and general principles of the law of nations. Number one, what is meant by nation or state? Nations or states are bodies politic, societies of men united together for the purpose of promoting their mutual safety and advantage by the joint efforts of their combined strength. That's the sovereign body politic. Such as, okay, number two, it is a moral person. So when we create this thing, it's a moral person. A personality, a personificance. Such a society has her affairs and her interests. She deliberates and takes resolutions. Isn't that something the House and the Senate does? They do resolutions. in common, though it takes resolutions in common, thus become an immoral person, who possesses an understanding and a will peculiar to herself, and is susceptible of obligations and rights. Because rights impose a duty. Where one man has a right, there's another man that owes him a duty. Now, here is number 3, the definition of the law of nations. To establish on a solid foundation the obligations and rights of nations is the design of this work. The law of nations is the science which teaches the rights subsisting between nations or states and the obligations correspondent to those rights. Back to that body politic. In this treatise it will appear in what manner states as such ought to regulate all their actions. We shall examine the obligations of a people as well towards themselves as towards other nations, and by that means we shall discover the rights which result from those obligations. For the right being nothing more than the power of doing what is morally possible, that is to say, what is proper and consistent with duty. It is evident that right is derived from duty or passive obligation. The obligation we lie under to act in such or such manner. It is therefore necessary that a nation should acquire a knowledge of the obligations incumbent on her, in order that she may not only avoid all violation of her duty, but also be able distinctly to ascertain her rights, or what she may lawfully require from other nations. But let's apply that principle there. When you have a public servant who is bound by the Constitution, they have a duty to uphold our rights, to support our rights. And when they're not doing that, they're in direct violation of God's law, in direct violation of the laws of nations and our Constitution. That's a breach of oath of office. Number 4, in what light nations or states are to be considered? Nations being composed of men naturally free and independent. This is getting into that laws of nature again. And who, before the establishment of civil societies, live together in a state of nature. So many times we talk about state, we think that's state of Arizona. State is actually a state of being. What we're looking at today is when you say state of, that's all corporation stuff. It should be Arizona state. That's it. No state of. And more specifically would be the territory of Arizona. Let's see. Nations or sovereign states are to be considered as so many free persons living together in the state of nature. We're all supposed to be defending, securing those rights, but we're supposed to be living in a state of nature, free and independent, free and equal. It is a settled point with writers on the natural law that all men inherit from nature a perfect liberty and independence of which they cannot be deprived without their own consent. In a state, the individual citizens do not enjoy them fully and absolutely because they have made a partial surrender of them to the sovereign. Now, that sounds real trickery there because we've been taught that citizens, the people, are the citizens. That's incorrect. The public servants are the citizens. The people are the people. And that definition comes from this book right here, The Law of Nations. Book 1, Chapter 19, subsection 212. Citizens are those that are from the civilized society who are bound to perform certain duties and subject to its authority. It's the members of a civil society. So when you read Article 6, Clause 3, it uses the words members and bound. It's like our founders wrote that directly from the Law of Nations. That's the capital C citizen, in their proper person, known as like sheriff, governor, lieutenant governor. Those are all persons that are created under the Constitution. Because those are all figments of imagination. Those don't actually exist. When we're born, do you pop out, I'm the sheriff? No. That's not how that works. I'm the governor. No, that's not how that works either. These are persons. So that's what person is. Anytime you see person is, it has to be created, such as a corporation. And most time, the word person means corporation. That's right. We're the free inhabitants or the people. Those are your three statuses right there. You have the inhabitants, which don't have any political power, and you're just totally free, living out in the woods, whatever, wherever you want to reside. But once you want to declare as a resident, per the law of nations here, now you become one of the people. Used to be a prerequisite to run for office. You had to own land. You were settled here. You declared your status to be one of the people. Oh gosh, you pay taxes. It means you're the boss. Okay? That's what that really means, to become one of the people, is you pay the bills. That's what makes you have that political power. Otherwise, stay over there as a free inhabitant. It's okay. It's okay to be over there as an inhabitant. You don't have anything to do with government. And it shouldn't be interfering with your personal private life to begin with. The same thing with the people, because the people institute government to secure their rights. And unless they're a member of the legislative, executive, and judicial, they're not bound by the Constitution, nor anything created under it. Doesn't apply to them. The only thing that applies to them is treaties. Right? That's a treaty made. They should be free, independent. Leave them alone. That's right. They're not citizens. Did they collect a paycheck? Were they elected and were appointed in a position of public trust? Yes and no. That's a half-truth, right? Some of it was bought. And the other half of the half-truth of that is they were warring amongst themselves and killing each other themselves. Some of the Indian tribes actually asked for people back in the early 1600s when they first came here and settled here, was asking them to help them defend their tribes. So it's a lot more than just we came here and stole their land and killed them all. And then again, I like to remind people, how many people do you think came over here in the beginning? I should just really rephrase that question. How many different classes of people came over here? I'll tell you right now, 3. The red coats, the blue coats, and the free people. The ones fleeing from the red coats and the blue coats. What do we have today? Republicans are what color? What color is the Democrats? We're being deceived, folks. That's the British. It's all British. They're both bad. Both parties are bad. We're not supposed to have parties. If for those of you that were down there, Lake Havasu under the London Bridge on the stage there yesterday, Randy Miller talked about that. We're not supposed to have parties. We're supposed to be Americans. That's it. That's it. We're not supposed to have parties and all that. Where does it say in the Constitution we're supposed to have an election before we have an election? I can't find that part in the Constitution. As many times as I've read through there, I've never found that part. That's a subversion of the law. Back to the law of nations here. As men are subject to the laws of nature, and as their union in civil society cannot exempt them from the obligation to observe those laws, since by that union they do not cease to be men. The entire nation, whose common will is but the result of the united wills of the citizens, remains subject to the laws of nature and is bound to respect them in all her proceedings. And since right arises from obligation, as we have just observed in section 3, The nation possesses also the same right which nature has conferred upon men in order to enable them to perform their duties.
Sorry, Kirk.
Disconnect that.
I don't know how to shut it off.
Bluetooth off.
It's off.
Turn it off. So this is what we're supposed to be doing here. Public servants are supposed to be recognizing the laws of nature first. It's supposed to be self-evident. Ignorance of this law is no excuse. And the next maxim of law is to know a thing and to be bound to know it are regarded in law as equivalent. So now they're in law when they're bound by it. Because that's Article 3, Section 2, suits in law. Article 7 of the Bill of Rights is suits at common law. So that's your difference. So suits in law is more like statutory law, and suits at common law is God's law, rights, suits between man and man. Suits in law in Article 3, Section 2 is for the public servants. They're the ones that are bound by it. They're subject to that authority. All right, so any questions out there so far? Blowing anybody's mind yet? Pretty much everybody here?
Hey, Kirk,
All right.
Kirk, are you connected directly to this now without the Bluetooth?
Well, yeah, it's straight microphone. Okay.
I have a question.
What's your question? Go ahead.
Okay, you talked about basically what Citizens United does,
I'm gonna come up and
corporations.
handle it.
Right now, we have corporations acting as government, acting as arms of government. It's happening worldwide. We have Citizens United, but how do we get out from under this, octopus control system?
That's a whole nother big ball of wax, whole nother education. I'm trying to teach you on some basic stuff here right now. But the short and sweet of it is, it's called the General Assembly.
We can't hear you
Yeah, he can.
through this.
The people are supposed to assemble the General Assembly. That's the sovereign body politic. Then the people are supposed to create the Constitution. This is all part of the common law that's been subverted and taken away from us. They've taken all of our power. So we're supposed to reassemble government de jure. This is all government de facto since 1871. I said it's another whole rabbit hole. So I want to try and stick to some basic, simple stuff here, okay? So you and I can talk later on that. Okay.
All right, so we're going to go over here to one of my favorite websites, Avalon. Avalon.law.yale.edu. And this is the, which one is this? Yes, the Articles of Federation. Before I get there, let's go back to the Virginia Declaration of Rights. We're going to get into the militia stuff, okay? Now, this is Article 13 of the Virginia Declaration of Rights, June 12, 1776. That a well-regulated militia composed of the body of the people. Imagine that. Trained to arms is the proper, natural, and safe defense of a free state. I mean, that right there almost sounds like the Second Amendment. Now, for those of you not aware of this, this is called succession of law. So through succession of law, rights cannot be diminished. And we don't change or alter fundamental principles, like the plus sign or the minus sign, the division sign, multiplication sign of mathematics. Those are principles or the rules of mathematics. Anybody here seem to think they can change the principles of mathematics? Anybody?
The globalists do.
Because you would totally destroy mathematics if we had the power to change a fundamental principle. This is where we get into logic and reason. 2 plus 2 equals 4. If you think it's anything other than 4, you need to be locked up because you're not of sound mind. That's how principles work. They're immutable. You just can't change them. It doesn't matter what your feelings are, what your opinions are. We don't change principles. That standing armies in time of peace should be avoided as dangerous to liberty, and that in all cases, the military should be under strict subordination to and be governed by the civil power. Do we know what the civil power is? Say again?
Us, the people.
There you go. How about you? Do you think any different? Or you agree with him? That's right. It is. It is the people. It is composed of the body of the people. That's breaking down the Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Fundamentally and principally, the militia is the people. From that pool of the people is the organized militia, because this is the unorganized portion. The organized is state-level military. The organized federal level is the military. That's the Army and the Navy. And the president also has dual purpose. The president is not only the president, but he's also another person called the commander-in-chief. Just like your governor. Your governor is this person over here, and he can change his hat and change it over to commander-in-chief of the Army of the Land Forces. So there's duality there for the president and the governor. Two different hats. And that plays along with what's really going on right now since Trump took office, and even before Trump took office, is that military stuff that even comes from the laws of nations under war and peace. This is what's going on. Military is doing what they need to do. Make no mistake. But that's another rabbit hole. Let's see. Let's go down here. 16. That religion or the duty which we owe to our Creator and the manner of discharging it can be directed by reason and conviction, not by force or violence. So we're not supposed to be using force and violence against our fellow man here, public servants. And therefore, all men are equally entitled to the free exercise of religion. Now listen carefully here. According to the dictates of conscience. This totally destroys this whole mask stuff, vaccine stuff. Done deal. Because that violates that fundamental right of liberty of conscience from religion. But it's been, for ages, they want control. They want us to be slaves. They don't want us to be free. So we have to stand up together in unity and tell them, no, you're done. We're not doing this. We're going to arrest you folks. These public servants that are unelected bureaucrats coming in to places like Great American Pizza, Brother Tony Romans out of California, who stood up the first time around. Now they're coming back around to attack him again. And if you're out there paying attention, Tony, we're rooting for you, brother. But that's what it takes. We got to stand up against this stuff, but you have to have the knowledge to literally empower yourselves on this stuff. Okay? Now to finish this here. All men are equally entitled to the free exercise of religion according to the dictates of conscience, and that it is the mutual duty of all to practice Christian forbearance, love, and charity towards each other. Man, we're supposed to be doing Christian forbearance, love, and charity towards each other. That's per God's law and the law of this nation called America. Now, in the Articles of Confederation, there's an interesting part here. It's Article 6 of the Articles of Confederation. And it's clause, 4 or 5 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The last one, 5. No state shall engage in any war without the consent of the United States and Congress assembled unless such state be actually invaded by enemies. or shall have received certain advice of resolution be informed by some nation of Indians to invade said state. Geez, that's Article 1, Section 10, that the states can do that. Just so you know, the states can do that. You can declare war in your own state if you're being invaded. All right. Let's keep going. And actually, I messed up. Well, I didn't mess up. We'll go back up one more to the fourth. No vessel of war shall be kept up in time of peace by any state except such numbers only as shall be deemed necessary by the United States and Congress assembled for the defense of such state or its trade, nor shall any body of forces be kept up by any state in time of peace except such number only as in the judgment of the United States and Congress assembled shall be deemed requisite to garrison the forts. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, forts, magazines, arsenals. For them, needful buildings, which is for military purposes. Okay? Defense. But every state shall always keep up a well-regulated and disciplined militia, sufficiently armed and accorded, and shall provide and constantly have ready for use in public stores a due number of filed pieces and tents, which is your tent stakes, and a proper quantity of arms, ammunition, and camp equipage. Wait a minute. The states are supposed to do that? We're supposed to be able to, on the way home from work there and pick up a loaf of bread, gallon of milk, some eggs, pick up a shotgun and some shotgun shells. We don't need ID. We don't need a background check because this comes from the laws of nature. We already have this right. That's off limits to government. That's why it says the right of people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. There's no subject matter jurisdiction delegated to either state or federal to regulate a right. Any of them. Show me. Prove it to me. Where does it say you get to regulate a right, government? Where? Put your finger on it. Just point to that emolument and grunt from the Constitution because it's not there. Rights are very simple and very clear. They're off limits. There's no subject matter jurisdiction. We've been lied to. Now let's get into Federalist Papers. Oh, let's see. Is it number 40? No, it wasn't this one. Number 29.
Hey, Kirk,
Yeah.
these guys would like to know if they can sign the petition that we got going to Washington.
Well, like I said, we've already got plenty of signatures from regular people. We're looking for elected officials to sign the petition. Okay, we're running out of room for. I mean, we're already on the back side of pages. So thank you for wanting to sign them, but we're loaded. We're looking for elected officials. Okay.
You guys know your elected officials, the pressure on them to sign this petition that we're taking to Washington. Get access to it. What's that? How do we get access to it? Get everybody get access to it. So we have original copy that has to go. Just have them contact me directly or Kirk Pendergrass. Kirk, would you like to give them out your email
I have a
for the
card.
elected officials?
My email is Kirk at kirkslawcorner.com. That's KIRK at kirkslawcorner.com. So we'll just go ahead and skip into that petition thing right here real quick, and we'll call this good here. So I've drafted a petition to Congress pursuant to Article 4, Section 4, because Article 4, Section 4 gives us the process, due process of law, to exercise political power. One of the processes here regarding foreign invasion. Okay, they are guaranteed a Republican form of government to each of the states of the Union. And to protect us from invasion, on application of the legislature, I want to reiterate this, it is the legislature that has this power, not the judicial or the executive. Again, not the judicial. So if the legislature doesn't get convened with this petition, then we go to the executive, which again is the military. But this actually, what I was going to try and get into was the fact that we actually have this right, fundamentally and principally already, as the unorganized by government militia, composed of the body of the people, which is every able-bodied male between the age of 18 to 64, or 17 to 64, automatically in the militia, duty-bound to defend this nation called America. That's how this America was supposed to survive. It's our republic if we can keep it. And so this is where we're at, folks. There is a foreign invasion going on at the southern border. Make no mistake, there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of military-aged men that are coming across this border on a daily basis. Okay, Johnathon Alexander is down there with his team trying to stop some of this, but he's just one man and a small team. And Border Patrol is aiding and abetting with this. Okay? They are not forcing them to stay over there. They're allowing them to come in, and they're told they're supposed to take them over here and process them and then release them, which is in direct violation of United States Code under immigration. Because that's not immigration. But they put in this new clause in there that says, oh, well, it's refugees. Really? They walked all the way from Africa over here to the border, southern borders of California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas. Really? They walked all the way over here? Was there anywhere in between where they came from and here that they could have sought refuge? Come on, folks. And I know there's some people out there that do not think that this is happening, but it is. And Johnathon puts out some great footage on his livebordernews.com website. You can see this stuff for yourself. Okay? And there's more than just these men coming through. We got women and children that are being human trafficked, murdered right there. Sometimes right in front of these guys standing there on the border when they're on the other side. They're chopping kids' heads off right in front of them, trying to entice them to get them to do something. Because that's how sick and evil these people are. So here's what I'm saying, folks, is I want to follow due process of law. Because I do believe in not using force and violence, as God tells us to do. But make no mistake, he doesn't say that we're supposed to turn the other cheek, but I've only got one other cheek. And I'll follow the law, and I'll follow due process of law until I've exhausted all remedies. And then it's time for us, the people, to take up arms and defend our nation as we see fit. Because that is the law, right from the law of nations, right from God's law. Even Jesus himself did it. You know, we misinterpret that word meek to mean weak. No. We're not supposed to be weak. We can be tolerable. But do you know the difference between moral good and moral evil? Because if you do, then you're of sound mind, and we need to come together, and we need to stand up, and we need to stop this. It's already getting pretty bad. Coming into this pretty late in the game, which I actually seen last night, Marjorie Green, she talked about wanting to draft a declaration of war. Gee, I wonder where they're getting that idea from. Maybe they figured that out on their own, but I've been talking about Article 4, Section 4 for a couple of years at least. Okay? So this is where we're at, folks. Our nation is being invaded. Make no mistake. And there's human trafficking going on. There's drug trafficking, arms trafficking. There's all sorts of stuff that's unlawfully coming across and through our borders. So that's the primary thing right here about this petition, is to settle this. Per the Constitution, the Congress has the power to declare war. So does your state governor. Article 1, Section 10. The governor can do this as well. You can take action within your own county even. If you had a sheriff that was willing to uphold the laws of nature and the law of this nation and defend your territory from foreign invasion. I say if, because I'm not seeing it happen. And there's some people here that are part of the CSPOA that wants some of these sheriffs that are elected right now to do something, but they won't. So this is in part why I came down here, was to talk to you folks about this petition and what we can do. What is the remedy, which is due process of law, to get the relief that we seek? And that's where we're headed. All right. Thank you all for showing up tonight and watching, tuning in out there tonight. Thank you.
Well, Kirk, I appreciate you coming out tonight doing this presentation. And I hope a lot of American people woke up to what's happening around this country as well. Continue to follow our reports. I've got a team down at the border as we speak. We're going to be sharing some live footage here come tomorrow morning. And we're going to be out in Tennessee on October 14th. I'll be giving a live presentation out there. I was asked to be one of the speakers. And so we'll be out by Nashville, Tennessee on the 14th with several other people. Mark Anthony will be out there with me. And we just got a major crisis. So again, I'm glad you came in and educated some people. And other than that, guys, we're going to end this video tonight. Appreciate you joining in.